Duke and Cal, the Blue Devils, their second game in Madison Square Garden here in the early going, #1 in the country, taking on Cal.
The last time Duke played Cal, Vernon Carey had 31 points in this 87-52 victory in Madison Square Garden. We're hoping Duke can turn the page after the Clemson loss this Saturday and have a similar performance, but this time at Cameron proper instead of Cameron North. And it's going to be important that Duke, turns the page and has a better performance in this game against Cal. And I think they will, but I think it's important to just kind of quickly go back over, how Coach Shire talked about that Clemson game.
I would sum it up with his comment in the post-game interview, press conference. And I quote John Shire, "Losing sucks." All right, Jack, take us through what you got out of the press conference.
Well, let's start with I have a quote too. He said, "If you get one stop and win, you don't have the same feeling," which is something that you said in the post game. As we talked about, that changes the entire discussion about the game, how you feel about the game, and more importantly, it changes your adjustments post game. If Duke wins, probably a little bit less emphasis on adjustments and improvements, but because they didn't, I think Coach Shire has an easier time, to your point from Saturday night, getting his message across to the guys. Sure. He did say not having Mason was a big deal, and also that Cooper was tired. He played 38 or 39 minutes, but he was kind of worn down coming into the game. He said Cooper didn't have his typical pop in practice, and it came out today in his Monday press conference interview, I'm not sure what they call them, that Cooper has been dealing with a similar illness, I'm guessing, to Mason Gillis, almost said Gilness, over the past 2 weeks here. And so, I think that's certainly part of it. And then Shire more so was saying that he's just getting every team's best effort to shut him down. And Duke, as a coaching staff, has to do a better job of keeping his energy up so he can perform at his best in games.
I thought, in addition to that, when he was talking about Cooper Flagg, he was saying that he had to take some of the pressure off of his shoulders. That run at the end of the game, as unbelievable as it was when he scored 14 points, and that's basketball. He drives the lane. I think he was ahead of the player. It's a wet spot on the court, and that's just the way it is. And so don't cry about it. You lost the game. But I think I almost wish this upcoming game against California, Cooper Flagg is not available. In the sense that I'd like to see what the identity of the team is when they don't have him to fall back on. We know that we love when they're spreading the court, all five guys are involved, and Cooper, personally, I like it when his stat line reflects that he is doing everything. And then we laugh. We say, but if that doesn't work, well, then just give him the ball like we saw at the end of the Clemson game. So, but I suspect Cooper is the kind of competitor. Did you catch that Mason Gillis tried to get on the plane in order to, oh my goodness, he tried to go to the Clemson game. And John Shire said, no, you can't get on the plane. And, so I think in the case of maybe Mason Gillis would say, all right, I can't go. Cooper would get his own plane. there's just like nothing that would stop this
He,
guy
he's got a little bit more money.
through the NIL and other ways. But yes, but I guess it would take a really severe injury to not have Cooper Flagg do it. But Jack, what else did you get out of John's press conferences?
Well, I want to go back to what you said about your. I wouldn't call it a wish, but the idea that if we didn't have Cooper, what's it look like? And I just want to maybe remind you, the Louisville game when we were down and we came back and won. The run happened without Cooper Flagg, so this team has done it in pressure spots without Cooper Flagg. Now, have they done it consistently? No. But have there been moments during the year? Yes, where they've had success without Cooper. And to reiterate, that was with Mason Gillis. I think Mason Gillis's value to this team has grown a lot as the season has gone on. Similar to the other two transfers that we like to talk about in Malik Brown and Sion James. They all have different values to the team, but they're all really important players for Duke. And Coach Shire said that Mason Gillis will be at practice today, so that's a good sign. Hopefully he'll be back by Wednesday, but we won't know. The other thing, this is not from the press conference, this is my takeaway. We've got to figure out how to get Kaman Malawach more involved offensively. He, over the last 6 games, which is starting with that Boston College game, which he struggled with foul trouble against Chad Venning or DJ Burns, whatever you want to call him. He had 4 points, or he's averaged in those 6 games, 4 points, 5 rebounds, and just over a block per game in 21 minutes. It's just not enough. And the more troubling stat from Malawach is he has 4 free throws in those 6 games, and those were all against Clemson. We just have to do a better job of getting him involved offensively, because it just puts much more pressure on the opposing bigs to actually have to guard, and it changes the game. Like, Locken was able to take over, especially in the second half against Duke. He didn't have to spend as much energy defensively against Malawach, because really he's just guarding against the lob play or a dump off pass. There's not a lot of intensity in that. And so I think it will help the team if we can get Kaman going again, because he did have a run where he was averaging 12, 13 points over 3 or 4 games just before that. So it's there. We've seen it, but can we draw it out of him more consistently?
Coach Shire's comment, we've got to figure out how to lighten the load on Coop, which, not everything is there. Certainly your analysis of Kaman is, Malawach is really one of the things that we can expect to happen, because he's shown that it could happen. And as opposed to at this moment in time, I don't expect that Foster is going to be the guy that is going to break out the way he has been playing. It'll happen, but it's not like I can go in there and say intentionally, here's how we're going to free up Foster. There doesn't seem to be any plan for it right now. But with Malawach, absolutely. Although I think when you break down the Golden Bears, you're going to tell me why this may not be the game.
It may not be, but I think there's opportunity. So let's talk about this Cal team, led by Coach Mark Madsen. Yes, the Mark Madsen from those Laker teams in the early 2000s. They are 12-12, 5-8 in conference play. They're a competitive bunch. They've dealt with some injuries. They're certainly led by Andre Stojakovic, who is Peja's son. He transferred over from Stanford and has just had a really impressive sophomore season for Cal. at 18 points a game, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists. He is 6'7", 205. And it's important to note that because his game, in some ways, there are similarities to another guy who's also 6'7" and weighs a little bit more. His name's Con Knipple. And there are some similarities between the two. Stojakovic is a little bit more of he moves a little bit more smoothly, but both guys can make plays for their teammates, can shoot it from the outside. The thing that I think is the most similar between the two is they like that like short to mid-range shot where they kind of like drive and then shoot over a smaller defender, inside the free throw line that Khan likes to do so much. Stojakovic has that in his bag as well.
Does he also have a three-pointer? Because as long as you're making the comparison between the two, we know that Khan will, K2 will absolutely, if the opportunity presents itself, he's shooting from three. So do you have any sense of Stojakovic?
Yeah, so, he is the son of Peja. So he can shoot the three, but he started off pretty efficiently and it's kind of tapered off from there. So he's only at 30% from three, but he's just really been struggling in conference play at 21%. So part of that, though, is he did get hurt and he hasn't quite been the same since coming back, but the whole team really struggles with efficiency. And that's something I'm going to get to a little bit later. But they have a 1-2 punch offensively. And the second guy is Jeremiah Wilkinson. And Mr. Wilkinson is an explosive guard with a mentality. I guess if we're going to continue with Duke comparisons, he's got an offensive mentality kind of like Isaiah Evans, maybe a smidge below in terms of he will turn down some shots. But he is looking to be aggressive, get to the basket. He will shoot off the dribble. He will shoot from three. He is just looking to score. He is a lefty explosive scorer, averaging 13 points per game. In conference play, that number bumps up to 15. He's gotten more starts. And he had a stretch before the game against Virginia Tech where he was at averaging just below 20 points per game. A lot of that was without Stojakovic available. So, take that for what it's worth. Next up is Jovan Blackshear Jr., who is a transfer. He's a small guard, 5'11", 165 pounds. He averages 11 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. Rytis Pertaitis is their like glue guy. He's like a 6'7", 210-pound forward, 8 points per game, 5.5 rebounds, and 2 assists for Pertaitis. Josh Ola Joseph is typically a starter. Wilkinson will come off the bench. He wasn't available last game. He gives them more size at the forward spot at 6'7", 215, 8 points, 4 rebounds per game for Ola Joseph. Not sure if he'll be available for this one against Duke. Their starter at center has been Mady Sissoko, 6'9", 240 pounds. Sissoko started his career with Michigan State before transferring over to Cal. He is a true big man, 7 points, 7.5 rebounds for Sissoko. One of their key guys off the bench is DJ Campbell, 6'2" guard, averages 8 points, 2 rebounds, and 2 assists. Their backup center is Lee Dort, 6'10", 245, 3.5 points per game, 5 rebounds. And that's kind of the extent. Christian Tucker has gotten into every game, but doesn't play very much. That's kind of the extent of this Cal roster, just a top-down overview. BJ Omat was a guy who they had big plans for this season. Unfortunately, he is out for the season after only 4 games. It's definitely impacted them. He averaged 11 points in those 4 games that he played. So they've been without a key guy for most of the year. And this is going to be a big test for Cal, who is on their Atlantic Coast road trip for this week, where they'll take on Duke and then Georgia Tech before heading back to Cal for an away game at Stanford.
Nothing like these Atlantic Coast teams coming into play from the West Coast. But
in the
did you
ACC.
Did you see that apparently Rick Pitino on Coach K's show on Sirius Radio they both are promoting the idea of merging the Big East and the ACC into one super conference. And the only reason I even thought of it now, because I'd rather just stay right where we are in the analysis, is the idea that SMU, the Cal Bears, I mean, this is now part of the ACC. I mean, they're 3 time zones away. I mean, well, SMU's one, but
yeah, the Big East would certainly make more sense than Cal and Stanford.
Right.
But the thing is, with the Big East, that would make it tough. Basketball wise, I think it makes a ton of sense. It's the football part that might be tough, because ACC football, while not the greatest, like an SEC, which is apparently the best in everything now. If you want to play against the best competition in any sport, it's the SEC. That just might make it tough. But basketball wise, it would be fun. I wonder what they would do with scheduling, because there's no way you could play every team in your conference, right? Because you'd be above 20 teams, and so that would take away.
Well, the ACC alone is almost close to 20 now.
Right now,
so
right.
The Big East has got to be at least 10.
Right.
So you're talking about 30 teams. Maybe you get to play everyone. You wouldn't. You wouldn't. You probably couldn't play everyone.
You would also lose, the 2 games a year with Duke, North Carolina, for example. You wouldn't be able to do that. So, pros and cons.
There'll be something in the rule, in the contract that merges them, that says that particular rivalry, they still have to play 2 games.
They'll have one rivalry matchup for each school, which you have to play two times a year. Okay, So
Jack, one of the things that I think you wanted to bring up was that Cal is a really good offensive rebounding team. And when you were describing each player individually, it seemed as if Mal has a height advantage that might be able to be exploited, and he might be able to use this as an opportunity to do that. But I think you wanted to point out that the offensive rebounding of this team is actually really good.
It certainly is. They're a top 30 offensive rebounding team in the country. They're the number 1 offensive rebounding team in the ACC. And not only do they do that well, but they also get to the free throw line at a really high rate. So they draw a ton of fouls. They're top 40 in the country at free throws per game. They don't shoot them very well, but they get there a lot.
What's their percentage?
As a team, they shoot. It's actually a little bit better than I gave them credit for. 76%. We'll round up. 76%.
Not the worst.
I gotta take back my comment. I apologize, Cal. It's better than what I had remembered. It's the shooting in other places that isn't very good. We'll get to that in a minute. So it's a good thing they get to the free throw line so much, because they do shoot it decently well. Okay, so you go through their roster. So as I mentioned, Mai Sissoko, he's 6'9", but he's 240, and he's aggressive, and he plays physically. He averages 3 offensive rebounds per game. So he averages 7.5 rebounds. 3 of those are offensive. And then his backup, Lee Dort, he's 6'10", 245. So you're just dealing with 2 strong guys. They may be a little bit shorter than Malawach, but One thing I noticed in the game with Locken is that he does struggle, lowering his base, and that could be an issue against these two guys who like to be physical. Lee Dort, 2 offensive rebounds per game of his 5.5 rebounds. So you've got 5 offensive rebounds combined at the center spot. So over your 40 minutes, you're getting 5 offensive rebounds. Then you look at Rytis Petritis, who's not the biggest guy. He's 6'7", 210, or 250, 210. 2.5 offensive rebounds per game. When I said earlier he's a glue guy, he just makes winning type plays. They don't necessarily win a ton of games, but they're in a lot of games, and it's because of guys like Rytis Petritis, who's not a very good shooter, but he finds his way to loose balls. He gets offensive rebounds. He gets some deflections. And so 2.5 offensive rebounds from him. So now we're up to 7.5 offensive rebounds, right? You throw in one from Andrei Stojakovic, you throw in another from Ola Joseph if he's available, and you're up to 9.5 just from those 5 guys. And they average more than 10 per game. It is a real strength of this Cal team, which kind of is, depending on who's in the lineup, they can kind of be really undersized or have good size, but not great offensive ability. And with that being, go ahead.
I was just going to say that this might be a game if Gillis isn't 100%, if Coop isn't 100%, for Sion to pick up one of the big guys with his strength, because he's not giving away that much in height, but his strength could be really important here to pick up one of the bigger guys.
Yeah, especially if he's in a lineup with Malik Brown in the game versus one of those two guys, you could see it a little bit more. Allow Malik to be more of a disruptor on the perimeter, and then Sion can handle the box out opportunities inside. I could see it working out. They are 127th overall on KenPom, 91st offensively, which is a lot because of their offensive rebounding and free throws. If you can shut off the water, so to speak, on their offensive rebounds and limit your fouls, this could get out of hand. They're 206th defensively. The reason why this could get out of hand is their shooting is not good, and it's why they have to get offensive rebounds, because they need multiple opportunities to shoot.
All right, Jack. How bad is it?
How bad is it? They are 312th in the country in field goal percentage at 42%.
Ooh.
They are not so bad, I guess, in the scheme of things here. 298th in 2-point percentage. And they're 303rd. Oh, and that 2-point percentage is 49% inside the 3-point line. That's not very good. And from 3, they're 303rd in the country at 32%. So
you're not expecting the 68% that Clemson shot in the first half of the game Saturday to occur in this one.
Well, especially because, as far as I know, their jerseys will say Cal and not Clemson, or apparently NC State, who shot the lights out at Duke last time and has just been a thorn in the Blue Devils side for the past few years now. So to answer your question, no, I do not think so. And also because Duke is going to be coming out, I think we're both on the same page here, with a different edge defensively that I didn't think they had against Clemson. That they've typically had throughout the year, where they are just playing at an intensity that is a lot of fun to watch defensively. And they just haven't. They didn't have that Saturday night for whatever reason. There's probably a number of reasons, but hard to say what the reason was.
Look, Coop doesn't slip. We're talking about Saturday night completely differently. The defense maybe wasn't as good as it usually is, as opposed to, as Shire pointed out, it could really use some uh, uh, some increased intensity. And if he wins the game, I'm not quite certain that it would be one of those things I'll talk to the team about, as opposed to here's one of the reasons we lost.
And we had a comment in the post game video, which was interesting, and they said, when we score 72 and below, we lose. And I went and looked at it, and it's our record on the season when we score 72 and below. We're 5-3. We've won 5 games, but if we so it's our offense. To your point, yeah, the defense wasn't excellent, but it wasn't. It's not like it was bad in the sense that Clemson just hit a lot of. Coach Hire said the first half he felt like Clemson hit a lot of tough shots. He felt like in the second half the defense wasn't quite as good.
Well, and to the comment, even though we were 5-3, we have 3 losses. So all 3 losses came in games in which we scored 72 points or less.
Right. I mean, I think we can all do the math, but I'll just say it, the quiet part out loud, which means in games we've scored 73 and more, we're 15-0. So I think that's an important magic number for Duke the rest of this season. It should be. All right. I'll give my prediction first. Typically, you give your prediction first, so we'll go the other way. I think this is going to be, to borrow your phrase, a beatdown. And I think Duke is going to win this game 85-62. No. Yeah, 62. 85-62. That's what I'm going with.
And I had it, I just scribbled it while you were talking. So I had it at 80-60, 20-point spread, where our offense is better, our defense is better, but their offensive rebounding could present problems depending on who's available, who's sick, who's not at 100%, who's not into the game to the degree that we'd like to see them as fans. It's not that they're not into the game. Don't ever interpret that way, but it's just like, can we get Mal going? Is there any chance that Foster finds his, shooting touch? It
Can Proctor keep it going? Because he's been on fire in the last handful of games here. Can Khan? He's had some pretty good games of late. Wasn't a good second half against Clemson, but overall I think he's been pretty solid. Can he keep going? Can Cooper, bounce back and have a good first half performance and kind of get Duke going early? Who are we missing here? Can Isaiah Evans have a little bit more of an impact on the game? And this might be asking too much, but maybe have a little bit improved shot selection. I think that's something to wonder. And
I think you're asking a lot.
maybe too much. I apologize. I think I should stay consistent with what I've said in the past, which is that it's the responsibility of whoever's passing it to Isaiah in terms of his shot selection. I think is where we're at.
Quick Draw is going to do what Quick Draw does. So, Jack, I was trying to think like taking the load off of Cooper, and it's obvious how it's emerged. It's can K2 and can Proctor can, along with Coop, all 3 of them score near 20 points a game. And I'm thinking of the team with Luke Kennard, Grayson Allen, and
That's
Jason Tatum.
your favorite team of the past 10 years, at least.
They're running the ACC tournament because you could almost guarantee that all 3 of them would wind up with 20 points. And because of the reliance on Cooper, I I can't always say that it would be as consistent as Kennard, Grayson, and Tatum, but I think that's what we're heading to. Or what I'd like to see is it's this three-headed monster, and that all three of them, if all three of them are on, we're scoring more than 72 points.
Yeah,
So
and I think to that point, can we get back to Khan like running a little bit more of the offense because he did it more so. I feel like it's declined as the years gone on. Like it's been Cooper and Khan's like initiating of the offense has kind of declined. Where I think the highlight was certainly the Kansas game from that aspect where he had 8 assists. So can he get a little bit more on the ball and distribute to other guys? And we haven't seen it so much this year, but we saw it certainly in Proctor's freshman and sophomore year. Maybe to Coach Shire's point, we get a little bit more on ball action from Proctor to mix in with him finishing plays as a shooter. So those are two to like expand on what you're saying. Two areas where I think they could rely less on Cooper by giving more responsibility to Tyrese and to Khan.
we'll see what we could, we'll see. So just going back to Coach Shire. So defense needed to be, stepped up. Uh, need to take the pressure off of Coop a little bit. Hopefully Mason's in the game. Uh, though he did recognize it, he didn't harp on it. Like to see our rebounding. That was, I think, the largest total we were out rebounded so far this year, but for a lot of very good reasons that you pointed out. If you're shooting 68%, how many potential rebounds are there to grab? So, and then
And
the other thing, there was one more thing that Shire had said was um, he was pretty sure that we did not get the majority of the 50-50 balls. And he uses that as an indicator as to how aggressive we're playing. And so I think those are all things that Shire brought up that we should also be looking for because those are the adjustments as a coach he's going to do.
And the only thing I was going to add is that, in the post game, I said we won't really get to see, how we do from a rebounding perspective against a team like Clemson, unless or until we play a team like that is Clemson, maybe Wake Forest, I guess, in retrospect as well. They're pretty big, at least with Reed and Spillers can rebound. And we did a good job against Wake Forest in that department. But is one of the nice things about this matchup with Cal is we will be tested in the rebounding department right away. And I think that will be good because we will get to see Will Kamon Malawach, battle with these guys who, they may not average a ton of points like a Lakin who averaged 11 points or 11, 12 points coming into the game with Duke, but they are serious rebounding threats. And it's going to be up to Malawach and company, but it's his main responsibility to keep them off the glass and make sure that, Cal's offensive possessions for the one part are one and done, like meaning one shot, not, one shot and you get an offensive rebound and you get another one, and that keeps them in the game. I think if we can limit them to the majority of the time being one and done, it's going to be a long night for Cal.
Well, I just don't want to see as Lakin did. I just don't want. I have nightmares of the guy just getting his hand on the ball and swatting it out, and it had to happen 3, 4 times, and I would have liked to have seen other pressure, but um, look, shout out to Lawrence Friedman. We're done. We lost. We're not running the table, so we don't have to take up more time on that right now. but we'd like to get back on the winning side because, as Coach Sire says, losing sucks.
And also want to win the ACC regular season. And now Clemson will have the tiebreaker over Duke. As far as I know, I believe it's head to head. So if we finish tied, I think Clemson will be the ACC regular or maybe they'll share it. I'm not so sure about that. Having said that out loud now, just forget that point. Let's just wrap it up. We want to win the ACC regular season, at least tie. So we've got a 1 game lead now. There are how many? What are we? 11-1 in the
Yes,
ACC.
12.
12-1. Okay, so we've got 7 conference games left. Thank you. Like to win at least 6 of them, if not all 7. And all right, with that being said, we'll wrap it up. We'll see you guys post game. I think it's a late game Wednesday.
9 o'clock. 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
So it's going to be a late night.
Late night. We probably won't be on for the post game until at least 11 p.m. So make sure to stay up late. We'll see you guys then. Be sure to subscribe, like this video, share it with a friend, and leave your comments below. And we'll see you guys for the post game show at 11. And the preview will be available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
And drop your prediction of the score for the game into the comments. And our last pregame got really nice viewership. So we're counting on you to talk to your friends, tell them to do it, text them, say there's this really good young analyst and his wacky father who just doesn't know everything and can't remember much, but has a lot of fun and enthusiasm for Duke. And we'll see you on Wednesday night.
We'll see you then. Peace.